doesn't know what kind of weapons you have, and you're refusing to take your hands out of your, out of your waistband or out of where you're reaching, that implies that you're going for a weapon. If you're reaching for something when a cop with a pulled gun is telling you to put your hands where I can see them.
After being tased twice.
Was
he on something?
I don't know. Probably. They usually are. George,
No, I think drafting is a police issue.
So why is it being made into a race issue?
Because there's so many other things going on. It's like this. I think it's bound to happen. I think anything that came up would.
Gotta lock you in here.
I think people. So actually, I found out today that foundations like the Ford Foundation and a lot of very rich liberal billionaires are funding a lot of the rioters that are going to the Black Lives Matter events to fly around, go to different cities like Kenosha, Portland, Washington, D.C., and stay in really nice hotels. Is that ridiculous?
But you said you do agree, though, that there are people that are going into these protests who are just trying to start shit.
Yeah, and they're literally associated with... They're the brown shirts of the Democratic Party.
And also from the anarchists, people.
Yeah, the ones that are being funded by the Democratic mega donors. Yes.
No, and also from the other side too. There are people who just want to burn.
Who? What people? What people on the other side? Who exactly are you referring to? What incident could you possibly?
They just want to start.
No, Republicans are builders and fixers. We don't do that kind of thing.
It's not true.
The only incidents where right-wing people were involved, right? Just start rolling. The only incidents where right-wing people were involved was Kyle, what was his last name?
Kyle.
The Kenosha kid. Right? Kyle something. He's the guy who shot 3 losers one in the head, and one in the stomach, and the other guy, he just tore his bicep out with the AR-15. And they were just 3 loser Democrats who were chasing him down, trying to beat him with a skateboard. How's it being with your parents? Hello, Mrs. Goldhill. How's it going? That's good. Are you excited for Ed to be moving out? You sound excited. That's good. That's good. Ed, are you excited? Bye. Yo, I wish I could help you move this weekend, but going to Disney World. Yeah. With Jackie and one of my friends from LSU. He's there right now, so I figured might as well. Yeah, bro. Florida doesn't care. Yo, so they did like a statistical analysis of how many coronavirus cases, like how many coronavirus deaths are actually due to coronavirus, not like serious other illnesses.
Have him guess.
Take a guess of what percentage of coronavirus deaths classified were just coronavirus.
Fake news?
Fake news or CDC real news? Oh, it's not like obesity. It's like serious comorbidities.
It is. They're including it. Obesity is 100%. Diabetes is 100%.
Diabetes is, yeah.
As this other health issue. And so it's bullshit, dude. Yeah, there's so many people who have, mental and physical issues. And, yeah, sure, they're more susceptible to dying. So it makes, it's just a bullshit. it's a bullshit, like, statistic. Like,
All
yeah,
I'm
people
saying
are
is,
dying because
let's
people
be
are
real
not
here,
healthy
Ed.
people are not healthy in America, and they're more susceptible to die if they catch it. So like, sure,
Let's be
doesn't matter.
real. It wasn't worth the lockdowns.
It wasn't worth. I mean, dude, look, if when the hospitals they don't have enough ventilators and they can't, dude, it's basic.
Okay, so you'll agree with me. The whole point of the lockdowns was to flatten the curve.
They don't have enough resources to help people.
This is off to a
Look at what happened to Italy,
great
or
start.
look what happened to Iran, when they just don't have the stuff and people are dying.
Okay, so I'll agree with you. I totally agree with you that the purpose of the lockdowns was to flatten the curve. Do you think we've flattened the curve?
I mean, it definitely helped. Yeah, definitely helped.
Okay, so just so you know, for your information, there's nowhere in the country where we are in a shortage of hospital beds or anything like that, or any ventilators, right?
But there were times when they were running out. Yeah, in New York.
No, they actually didn't even use the Javits Center Field Hospital once.
They were struggling, dude. I know for a fact they're running out.
They had the Navy hospital ship that came, and they have the Javits Center that was opened as a field hospital, and they didn't even need it.
We gotta start this fucking
They
podcast.
didn't have the space.
Is it? I'm sure it's going.
I mean, it
They're
is. but-
reusing ventilators. They're reusing things that they shouldn't have been reusing. And it's because they had to. But like,
Okay, I'll grant you the premise that in New York they had a moment where they did really need to shut down, right? To flatten the curve, right? But at this point, is there any reason to have any more restrictions on anything?
at this point, I agree. No, I think there should still be restrictions to an extent, because you don't want. Look what's happening. Look what's happening in Europe. These second waves are happening. Like, you don't
Not true.
want.
Talk
about
about
the
Northern Italy.
You have to be smart about it.
Well, I'll grant you that. I'll grant you that there's always, we knew from the beginning there would be a second wave, right? We knew that the curve wasn't going to be as sharp, but it will be flatter and it'll go over a longer period of time, right? That was the whole premise. It wasn't to actually stop the virus.
No, I agree. I think that it's not as needed as it was before. Like, we're definitely past that. But at the same time, though, opening up everything, people will, party, and people will, like, it's just, people still need to understand that you have to distance yourselves in a way. It's like, I think there should be some restrictions when it comes to number of people in a restaurant. Like, I don't know, dude. I mean,
Well, that's the key phrase. That's the key takeaway here. You don't really know.
you don't know.
He's not gonna stop. You need to.
Have another, like, 180,000 Americans die.
Well, here's the thing. All it is prolonging the virus. It's not going to actually prevent any deaths, right?
I mean, look.
Flattening the curve. Right now, the most restrictive country in the world with their coronavirus lockdowns, you know what it is? It was Peru.
You look at how poorly America has dealt with it compared to other countries.
All right,
You suck.
Look at how Peru has dealt with it, Ed, right? They had the military enforcing lockdowns, and right now they're having like the biggest spike in the world. And it literally just, like I said, it didn't save any lives. It literally just made sure that hospitals had enough equipment to deal with it, right?
Well, I think it's also comes down to, like, what people are actually doing. Like, sure, it's one thing to have, like, these restrictions, but it's another to actually, make sure that people are not being dumb and having, big, massive get-togethers, and, people just.
Why not, though?
Because, like, it's the more people in an area, the higher chance there are people catching.
Okay. You know what country didn't close down and didn't really do shit?
Sweden.
Sweden. And you know how they're doing? They have some of the lowest infection rates in the world right now.
Okay, but we have to look up why.
Well, the whole purpose of locking down was to flatten the curve. And what they said was our healthcare system can handle the amounts of... Yeah.
They have universal health care, unlike.
2-minute warning, bro.
Okay, Ed, 2-minute warning. I'm getting a 2-minute warning. But All I'm gonna say is our hospitals are currently able to handle way more than they're currently being needed.
You're taking over the show.
Yeah. No, you're on the show, bro.
Am I?
Yeah.
Can I see this video?
Yeah, obviously. It's like this is how it started. We just transitioned from our FaceTime into the show.
I like it.
Yeah. So Ed, always happy to have you on. You know, man. Next time we gotta have you IRL from your new crib.
Some key takeaways. I agree that the lockdown isn't really doing that much, but at the same time, it's like what is because it's the unknown, you know, and it's like when you're dealing with like people's lives and when you're dealing with people's money, it's always tough. So it's like at the end of the day, it's all it sucks.
That's a hot take.
I hate it, dude. I want everything to be back to normal. I want everything to be back to normal, man. I'm done. I'm done with it.
Yeah. Yep. I think we should go like Florida, just back to normal.
Yeah. But dude, also don't shoot anyone 7 times in the back. Like maybe 3.
You better watch what you say, bro.
Just saying.
All right, bro. Good talk. I'll see you Sunday. All right. I'll help you move.
Yep.
Yeah. Bet.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Let me know what you need.
Thanks for having me on. I'll see you guys soon.
Bet.
Peace.
Peace. Nice.
All right.
Good start right there. Right?
Nice.
Ed coming in hot.
Welcome to the show. Cheers.
Welcome. Cheers. So we're drinking a fine
Apple juice.
Apple juice. Wow. It's a good apple juice, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I've really never been into whiskeys or bourbons until I learned how they were made. And it's like a next level of complication where they have to smoke the barrel, but just perfectly in the exact kind of wood and a certain number of years.
Yeah, and then the different kinds of wood, like, make different bourbons.
No, I mean, bourbon has only one specific kind of wood to be classified as a bourbon, and it has to be in Kentucky.
Really?
Yep. So it's Tennessee whiskey, Kentucky bourbon.
Word.
Right, and it could be made the same way, but depending on which state line you're crossing, you know, you got a different product on your hands.
That's where I grew up, and I went to neither. Actually, I think it was Tennessee and Kentucky. That's where I joke, because I grew up there. Bedford County, I think, is where the whiskey is made, and that's like the one county in Middle Tennessee that I didn't go because it was really close to Murfreesboro, which you're familiar with.
Yep.
And that's where the office was. That's where a lot of the people we got to work were, and so they always went around, like, prospected in Murfreesboro, Bedford County, and I honestly forget. I don't know what the city is down there. But since I was in Nashville, I just shot straight north up into Kentucky. I was like, screw southern Tennessee. I'm going north and I'm going west. That's how I ended up in Paducah, which mentioned on the prior podcast.
Yeah, if you don't listen to the rest of our podcast.
Yep.
Fuck you.
No shrooms this podcast.
Dude, sad.
Yeah. I was on one.
I really want... Oh, last time?
Yeah.
Dude, like right after work, you're just like...
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. Actually, so... fun.
Post-breakup, man. I'm experimenting.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm going to tell you a little bit of news. I'm trying to apply right now to be a Space Force officer. No cap. Space Force officer. I'm going to be commanding space. So, no drugs.
How's that going for you?
I mean, they're like, okay, sound pretty qualified. Like, you know,
Who's they?
The system, man. The space officers. No, it's like, so it's technically still a little bit under the Air Force, but it is its own branch in a way as well. So they first have to draw from the Air Force officers. So you have to pass the Air Force like tests, and then you can go on to be a Space Force officer, which is like a whole next level whatever. So, but you also need a STEM degree, which we got. You know?
Yeah. What do you think your chances?
Dude, I'd say like 20%, but worst case scenario, I'm an Air Force officer, which is still a pretty solid gig. Overall.
Are you chewing gum on a podcast?
Dude, I didn't realize it was a big faux pas, but yeah. I just ate fish, so
You kind of have to do what you gotta do.
Word. I just ate
This
chicken.
thing would smell like fish if I were not chewing gum. That's all I'm gonna say.
Whatever. So I thought I was having a podcast with my cousin Jacob, and he like said, "All right, I'm around in 2 weeks." I'm like, "Dude, so much is going on. Like, fucking get your ass available like sooner than 2 weeks." So now we're here. I have all these notes.
Oh my, dude, this man wrote like a novel, a novella.
You know how I do.
Yeah.
So
all right. Tell me the first line of your novella.
George Floyd was on a lethal dose of fentanyl.
I think we all know that. That's why
Jacob
his middle
Blake
name
was
is
reaching for him.
Yeah, it's George Fentanyl Floyd.
What the fuck? Kyle Rittenhouse, by the way.
Kyle Rittenhouse, what up? Absolute, that man.
Antifa shooting Trump
That man
supporter.
should be
Death to
Space
America chanted in Oakland.
Are
we
you
got
surprised?
some crazy shit going on. We got RNC, we got DNC, we got Kamala Harris, we got Joe Biden. They're all flip-flopping. They're all saying wacky, crazy shit. Clavin today was on some next level shit with
I was going off listening to that.
Yeah.
I love listening to him while I'm working. It's just like it's a next level work sesh.
I listened to him right when I ran. I got home from work at 6 and I ran. I was like, I gotta get on this shit. Gotta listen to Clavin before you get here. But 3 very interesting coincidental things happened today. So 1, a man held on to a bunch of helium balloons and floated up 25,000 feet and skydove down to the ground.
Wow, this is better than Black Lives Matter.
David Blaine.
No way.
Yep.
Oh
He's been
what
promoting
a
this shit.
baller.
That's why he went on Joe Rogan. He did shit with Casey Neistat, the D'Amelios, Will Smith,
The
fucking.
D'Amelios, great people to do. I don't know what he did with the D'Amelios, but
yeah, we know it's on camera. We know it's on YouTube, but who knows? Who knows?
What's on the other platforms is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see David Blaine's OnlyFans,
Dude, wow.
but
They would make billions on OnlyFans.
okay. Recap: David Blaine, he got his hot air balloon license. He did 400 skydives. He got his gas balloon license, which is different than a whatever license, and he had to get like all this legal stuff.
I said, "Oi, you got a license for that, mate?"
And
What is this, England?
MKBHD, do you know who that is?
Yeah, the fucking black tech guy,
Yeah, Marquez Brownlee.
black computer man.
I met that guy once.
What?
Yeah,
Really?
because he plays professional frisbee, and I was at Vineland, New Jersey.
What a nerd.
Yeah, I was in Vineland, New Jersey at the tournament, and we played his club team. And I was like, dude, I'm gonna fucking cover Marquez, and he books it deep.
Yo, no way this is a real story.
And I'm 6 foot tall, so I'm like, I got this. So I go. I'm gonna try and prove myself. I huck it deep. It's all up in the air. I'm on defense. He's on offense. All of a sudden, I see this man jump actually 15 feet over my head, catch the disc, and come down. I was like, who am I for thinking?
Hell, bro?
And I like smiled at him with how embarrassed I was for thinking that I had a shred of a chance of playing defense on him. And it was really embarrassing. But, that's how I met Marquez Brownlee, who hosted the intro to David Blaine's Ascension this morning.
Wow. Oh my dude, what a guy. I want to know more about Marquez Brownlee because I've always just thought of him as like a little tech nerd.
Nah, he's a good
But
guy.
he's kind of a beast at Frisbee apparently.
Super beast. Yeah, he plays pro. And yeah. And so there was another, well, dude, this is a political podcast. We're talking about a man floating up in balloons. That's one coincidental thing. Number 2 is I finished The Brothers Karamazov this morning.
Wow. I have not really moved on too much.
I figured you haven't.
Nope. I've just had things to do.
You reading anything?
Yeah, right now I'm reading about the guy who started Southwest. Freaking Herb Kelleher. What a cool dude. Unbelievable story. I got to let you have it after I'm done.
Yeah, I heard about it in Start With Why by Simon Sinek.
All I'm going to say is this guy, Herb, just thinks outside the box, does things, well, but in a fun way, and runs like one of the best companies in the world. Well, ran R.I.P. Herb,
Yeah.
but it's crazy how much of an entrenched system he had to go up against. Because just to start Southwest, he had so many court cases with like existing airlines. So he's a lawyer. That's kind of why how he got there. He was the original lawyer for Southwest, and all these entrenched airlines.
And it's like a one-man show. This is like a literal one-man show starting this entire airline.
There are a few people. Obviously, he wasn't even CEO at first. He was just like helping some other dudes out. He was the lawyer, and all these companies just kept coming at him, and like they barely survived every single lawsuit. After like 5 major lawsuits, Southwest could finally operate, and they couldn't even fly interstate. They had to fly within Texas. That's how they started. Like San Antonio,
Southwest.
Houston, Dallas, and like it's so corrupt how the existing airline system is set up, because like not only did all the other airlines sue him just for being in business, then the airport, Dallas Fort Worth, sued him because he didn't want to use them, and all these other airlines agreed that they would like invest in a new airport, and he's like, no, I don't want to invest in a new airport. So they sued him for not using the new airport, which he won. But it's like, it's such a ridiculous story, but it's so like inspirational on how he does business.
Working through the system. Yep.
Exactly. So screw the system.
Shout out
Southwest.
Shout out Herb Kelleher.
Yep.
Nice.
All right. Next item on the list, on the agenda, what do you have?
Well, the third coincidental thing that happened today, Miley Cyrus was on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Wow. I wonder
Huge.
what she said. Did you listen to any of it?
I listened to, it's on my phone up there. Yeah. I listened to an hour and a half out of the 2 hours. Because I was up in Scranton today, so that's what I listened to on the way back. It was fascinating. That's all I'm going to say.
What do you think about it after listening to that?
I sympathize a lot with her. There's sometimes when you're reading fiction and you're like, there's so much about that character that I can't stand about myself. And
So
I was
she's like-
watching this.
She's like a decent, like, likable person, IRL.
Yeah, a little over the top and all that. But, like, yeah, she's got at least her head on straight.
Really?
Yeah.
Which is surprising.
It's
Given what she was like in 2013, 2014, Miley was off the chain.
maybe. I mean,
She's
she
just
gives
a
a little
hoe.
context about that time period, but like, I mean, you see the shows, you see the whatever, the crazy sexualized this and that, but that's not like all of who a person is.
Obviously not, dude. I really liked her. She had a Black Mirror episode, which was really cool.
I didn't see that.
Dude,
I didn't watch all of Black Mirror. I loved what I saw of it though.
it's like they have, I think it was the first one of season 5 or something, and it was so good. It literally, it's like a portrayal of herself, like a pop singer who has a handler, right? And the pop singer is like not vibing with anything, and the handler is like drugging her, and at one point the handler puts her in a coma and then tries to extract her consciousness.
I was
Right?
about
So-
to say, is this a true story?
No. This is, I guess it's based on real events. But the handler is like extracting her consciousness and puts her in a coma and then wants to kill her off. But then, like, her consciousness exists in these dolls, which kind of have like her brain in it, but it has like a blocker that like a software blocker to prevent her brain from like truly expressing itself.
Yeah.
And
okay.
then these girls undo the blocker because they have like some sort of software. Like it's a little out there, but then this doll, which technically has the brain of the pop singer played by Miley Cyrus, is like, yo, what the hell? We gotta like go save me. And it's so crazy. So like they were trying to kill her, but I don't know. It was ridiculous.
I'm gonna get back on that.
Sorry, watch
I'm
it.
watching Cora, but I don't really watch anything, so I just watch it. I don't have like a routine for watching TV, so it's just like every
That's
third
really good.
weekend I watch like a couple episodes of a TV show.
Yeah, no, I would say put that on the top of your list, and probably good that you don't have a routine for watching TV.
Yeah,
It's a
I'm the
waste of
one
time.
person in America, so I'm awesome.
Hey, what can I say? It's not a routine for me. It's just,
Yeah.
there's like a show I really like. I will kill it in one sitting and then not watch anything for like 3 weeks. So
Okay. So there's something, a local playhouse was trying to make money, so they made this like play about politics. They called it Electile Dysfunction.
good name. Okay.
Nice. Okay, so and they were interviewing people on the street, and it was like interesting to like see the street perspective. I wanna play a little bit of that. Then we can jump into politics.
Yeah, okay.
But this
Wow.
is, trust me when I say it's worth watching.
Bucks County local. Who are these people?
Oh, you'll see. Oh my god. Okay.
Is the internet shot?
No.
Rip.
No. But I have a workaround. Bada bing. Bada boom. There we go.
Interesting. We'll
I knew
link
this would
in.
happen.
We'll link
I
this
actually-
in,
I
in
knew this would happen.
post-production.
Okay.
All right, let's watch it.
I was playing Rocket League in the background. Who was that?
What, are you in it?
Who
was
that?
What? Yo! Look at that young professional.
Okay, and you're gone. Wow, this is
It's
going.
like a one-man show?
You know what?
No,
Perhaps
it was
we can
55
pivot
minutes.
A little bit.
No, I said one-man show.
What's
Oh, no.
the word on the street regarding the election right here in Ambler, Pennsylvania? Ladies and gentlemen, we sent our very own Tony Braithwaite out to take the political temperature right here in our own backyard.
What do you think are the big hot button issues in Ambler?
Probably all the local businesses, the health. I work with a lot of local guys, and a lot of them are struggling for good workers. They're struggling for affordable health insurance.
LGBTQ rights?
Well, I think Ambler wants some change there. I'm going to tell you that. I think they think that that we could make America great again by changing back to some things we were before 2016.
Well, right now it's the pandemic.
Pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic and the errors that have been made.
How big a role do you think the pandemic will play in the election?
Honestly, I don't know. Maybe not that much, actually. If coronavirus never happened, none of this debate would be going on.
Big question, Biden or Trump?
I'm a Biden guy.
Biden, probably.
I'll be
What's my
right
answer?
beside.
Riding with Biden.
Oh, Trump.
Biden, cute.
Biden Q.
But
Work
Biden.
stuff.
Why Biden?
because he's not Trump. Trump's got to win. He's the greatest president we've ever had.
Biden.
Biden.
Alhamdulillah.
And why Biden? You really have to ask that. So you're a Trump voter for this election?
Absolutely.
What made you be a Hillary voter then and now a Trump voter?
I love my country now. I keep America great. Things are good. The economy's great.
Oh, all right. The country's completely falling apart.
There's bad news every day. I have a bit more hope with Biden. I just am not a really big fan of Trump.
Trump's the kind of guy, he shoots straight from the hip. You know, he says, we're going to do this, and this is what we need, and this is what I'm going to do.
For instance, build a wall. We're going to build a wall, and we built that big wall.
I'm not going to lie, he's definitely an outlandish guy.
Trump is mentally ill, I think. Now, as you know,
Fatty.
Donald Trump in 2016 at Act 2 Playhouse wanted to run against you for mayor.
Yes, yes. I think he was too frightened to do that, so then he decided to do this.
Neither candidate's hair is good.
Right. As somebody that went from a full head of hair to this buzzed head about 3 weeks ago, they've both got a bad hairdo.
having some nice hair would help, probably.
Well, I never noticed Biden's hair. Is there something interesting about it? I have no idea if Donald Trump's hair is hair.
They say it has to come up from behind and get all teased out.
It does, for sure.
Yeah.
That's amazing. He's got someone doing that.
We can clearly see that he has a comb over, and it's just, it looks like Trump shit.
She's one of
Donald
them.
Trump will stay away from helicopters. It tends to float back a little too much.
I think it's great for the country.
I'd like to see it in the White House for another 4 years.
What'd you call that color on Trump?
Good answer.
Maybe it's like a fluorescent, nauseating orange.
Nauseating orange was left out of Crayola 64.
Yes,
But they should add.
They should. They can just call it Trump orange.
Now, there's a lot of discussion that the two of them are gentlemen in their 70s.
Yeah.
Do you think that's too old to be president?
Well, I hope not.
Well, they probably are too old. I mean, we can get right down to it.
Politics takes a long time, but then, I mean, how old is
This guy's a
Joe Biden?
squish.
111.
Right.
Age is not a big
Wait, what's wrong with that guy?
What if someone was
Is he a Biden guy?
this one would be alive. If Donald Trump was standing right here next to me and you could look him in the eye, what would you say to him?
I wouldn't even want to speak to him. I have no words.
You would say, Donald, comma.
Thank you for running the country.
Just wanted to thank you for ruining our country. I don't think I can say that on camera.
Yes, you can.
You're just a disgrace, okay? You were the biggest
She's not wearing a mask.
dip, malignant cancer I have ever seen for any job whatsoever, let alone the President of the United States.
If Joe Biden was standing right here and you could say one sentence to him, you would say, Joe, comma, what?
It doesn't matter. He won't remember. I don't even know what I would say to him because he wouldn't comprehend it. I don't know where he doesn't know where he is.
If he could sound a little more less vague,
Let's vague. Yeah,
more definitive.
Do you think his vagueness comes from all those years of taking the train?
Right, he's not sure which side of the track to be on. Right?
Very good. Very good. Now, Joe is from Delaware. Have you had the chance to meet Joe ever?
You know, not handshake to handshake, no.
Well, nobody's doing that.
True.
How about elbow to elbow?
Not that lately either. I am Jean Story, the mayor of Ambler Borough, and I approve this show.
Oh my goodness.
Wow, erectile dysfunction. Let's go. So I'm surprised they had found a few Trump supporters in Ambler.
Yeah.
It's a little bit
The
of
story behind that is I was doing my food delivery. I did Postmates, and the job took me to Ambler. It's kind of like, you pull it up, it says, "Bidding, here you got a job." So I went to this restaurant, was picking up food, and I saw across the street there were the people with a camera and a microphone harassing someone to interview them. And I'm walking into the restaurant, walking down the sidewalk, all suited up because that's how I do. And they were like, look, it's a politics show, but it's just funny answers. Like, how do you think about Donald Trump's hair? And I said in my head, fuck yeah, I'm getting this food, putting it in my car. I'm getting in front of this camera. And the person they're harassing was like, no. And they're like, whatever. So I get the food.
Like uptight. It's like, I'm not telling you about my personal information.
No, they were just uncomfortable to be talked at by a stranger with a camera and a microphone. Like, this dude is like from LA, or he moved to LA. He was one of them. So get the food, put it in my car, walk right up to them. I'm like, what's going on here? Erectile dysfunction and blah, 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 blah. And so did that. Couple other of the questions that didn't make it in were, who would you least like to be president? And I said, probably my leftist uncle. And they said, what's he like? And I said, well, he talks a lot about computers when he's not talking about racial hierarchies. And they asked me about Melania. They asked me some other bullshit.
Ask me about Ivanka, though.
Yeah. Make sure you're talking to the top of that microphone.
Oh,
Ben.
Yep. Right on.
Yeah. So, that happened. And then they gave me a card to view this thing on August 25th. So I
What
go
was
to
this
the
recorded? Like 3 weeks ago or something? Or
Yeah, maybe a little more, maybe a month ago. maybe a month ago.
So this is before the big riots.
Oh, I'll tell you
before-
exactly when. It was the day before Kamala Harris was picked. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Come on my back, Harris. Wow.
Wow. You're way more of a troll than me.
Yo, I'm sorry, but like the facts are the facts. Even the mayor is like, yeah, I literally gave her promotion because she sucked me up. Like,
Dude, you're way into the fight, but like, and bro, you talked to Ed for 20 minutes, and he couldn't. If you asked him, what did Simon say? He would have no idea.
yeah, dude. At that point, you're regardless of what you say, he's not gonna, register it. He's gonna have a malfunction in the.
That's
circuit.
not true. You're weak. You're weak. You bring weak sauce. You say, no matter what he says, he's a leftist. He's not gonna. How do you know that? How do you know you're not
he's
just
programmed to think a certain way?
That's
right. He, until reality strikes him in the bottom, he will be demoralized.
I think you're wrong.
That? Who said that?
I don't know.
Oh, dude, if you have never watched this, man, I might have referenced it in other podcasts, but we actually have to sit down and watch a clip of him because he's like straight up predicted in 1984 exactly what's going to happen to America if you let these leftist idiots run your country like this. And his whole premise is that the Soviet Union tries to set up in every country, it tries to ideologically subvert the United States and enemy countries by, infiltrating the education system, infiltrating
the comedian?
media. No, he's like
The comedian, bro?
he's a KGB defector. He explains the process.
What are we talking about? What are we talking about here?
Oh, the guy I was quoting.
And who is this guy?
He's a KGB defector.
He's a guy?
He's
You don't know
just-
his name? You don't know
Yuri
his show?
Bezmenov.
Yeah, he was on Klavan, right?
Nope.
He's
He's
on...
long dead. He died in like the 80s or the 90s. But he did a series of interviews in the 80s where he explains the Soviet Union's process of demoralizing countries. And essentially what he says is they'll try to promote these people who talk about social justice and how bad America is and all these leftist ideals. And since America we have freedom of speech, right? We let these people speak, and he tries to promote them in academia, in the media, in all these different systems. And it's, from the top, it starts out by the Soviet Union, but he says, in the end, the whole process is that Americans demoralize themselves. And that is most of what the KGB does. The KGB doesn't actually do too many covert operations. Most of what they do is ideological subversion. If you want, I will pull this clip up and you will hear for 5 minutes literally how this all works. It is the most fascinating clip you'll watch ever. I'm doing it. Yeah, ad block, right?
YouTube Premium. Even better.
Oh.
Do you watch Liberal Hive Mind?
No, what is it?
It's like a little more trolly Tim Pool. You watch Tim Pool?
Nope.
Yeah, it's crazy how we have such different spheres of conservatism.
Yeah, I don't really listen to too many people. Do you like Andrew Klavan? I do like Dan Bongino.
I should give you my Daily Wire login because I'm all access.
Let's get it.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to play this for you. This is, if you haven't seen this guy literally, this is a 1984 interview where he gives a warning to America about how the Soviet Union ideologically subverts Americans. So here, watch this. There's an hour-long interview, but just... Oh. Is it playing? Oh, so we'll restart.
Mr. Bezmenov was born in 1939 in a suburb of Moscow. He was the son of a high-ranking Soviet Army officer. He was educated in the elite schools inside the Soviet Union and became an expert in Indian culture and Indian languages. He had an outstanding career with Novosti, which was the and still is, I should say, the press arm or the press agency of the Soviet Union. It turns out that this is also a front for the KGB. He escaped to the West in 1970 after becoming totally disgusted with the Soviet system, and he did this at great risk to his life. He certainly is one of the world's outstanding experts on the subject of Soviet propaganda and disinformation and active measures. Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years, actually it's overfulfilled, because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation, what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy, the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world that the process will go that fast. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. Your leftists in United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. But they may turn into the most bitter enemies of Marxist-Leninists when they come to power. And that's what happened in Nicaragua. You remember most of these former Marxist-Leninists were either put to prison or one of them split, and now he's working against Sandinistas. It happened in Grenada when Maurice Bishop was already a Marxist. He was executed by a new Marxist who was more Marxist than this Marxist. Same happened in Afghanistan when first there was Taraki, he was killed by Amin, then Amin was killed by Babrak Karmal with the help of KGB. Same happened in Bangladesh when Mujibur Rahman, very pro-Soviet leftist, was assassinated by his own Marxist-Leninist military comrades. It's the same pattern everywhere. The time bomb is ticking with every second. The disaster.
Yeah, cancel that. Or, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So that's kind of the whole premise I'm going off of, right? Leftism isn't so much an ideology as cultural programming, right? How do you know? Because 10 years ago, their ideals were totally different, right? Their ideals were, free speech all the time, all day, every day, right? No restrictions on speech, no nothing. They pretty anti-pedophile from what I remember. But now they're programmed, right? Whatever the media, whatever the culture pumps into their heads is their new ideology.
That's not true.
Okay.
That's not fucking true.
Name me
bro. Look,
one major issue where Ed will defy the cultural programmers.
You made a jump. You're making a jump. And this is where I think that I come in. This is where I think that my understanding of, like, my ideas, I think that I come in. Because you made a jump of the media and their message and Ed and what he believes. And because they're equated, there's this assumption of programming from top down. But my
whole premise is that Ed isn't thinking logically, right? He's not able to even.
Neither are we.
Well,
and
I'm
perhaps
under the assumption. I think that we are much more better inclined to think logically because our whole thing is we always hear what leftists say. Culture, we know what they're saying. We know what the news is saying because they own the news. We know their whole shtick, right? But we also hear the counterbalance. Ed doesn't get a counterbalance, right?
You're right about all this, but you're dancing around the reason why people believe what they believe. And so Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, is a good start. And it talks about advertising and all this kind of stuff. And the idea is start with why. So Apple, if they said, look, we have computers with complex functions, but with a very slick user interface, and we're different from our competition because of this and blah, 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 and we're always down to innovate. Why don't you buy our computer? Apple, that's not what they say. That goes from what they do to how they do it, and they leave out why they do it. But what they actually do is we believe in challenging the status quo. Everything we do is about challenging the status quo. Our user interface, we're different from our competition because this, and that. We just happen to make computers. Want to buy one? When people buy Apple, it's a statement about what they believe, what the individual believes about themselves, what it proves what they believe, rather than rationally buying a computer because they're weighing the user interface specs. you can't rationalize quality, and ideas are qualitative, not quantitative. And so it gets very complicated, and it's only possible for me to talk about it in specific instances, but I have my idea of what I want to say on these kinds of podcasts is to put my hand on the pulse of actual liberals and actual people who aren't centrists, who are actual liberals, and even further left. They kind of buy into the stuff, but they're not maybe crazy. And when I say leftist blah 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 political correctness, they're like, yeah, political correctness is crazy, but then they still buy into this stuff. It's like, why? What is going on in these people's heads and hearts for them to buy into a lot of this stuff and not be able to hear? What's their bias against hearing the conservative opinion when they're not leftists? That's what I want to have my hand on the pulse of.
Interesting. My whole, I guess, the why for why a lot of this is a theory,
and I'm gonna have my theories too. So go. This is like a great
the
start.
why, the product that they're being sold is that if you believe this, you're a good person, right? You know, and it's super easy when Stephen Colbert is spoon feeding you. Here's this opinion, and hey, if you believe this, you're all good. Here are these bad people who disagree, and they're so mean. And here's a couple quirky jokes about what kind of assholes they are. I mean, not obviously, but the easy conclusion to come away with from that is that if you believe this, if you have these opinions that are prepackaged and sold to you by, the media and the culture, then you're going to be a morally better person. And obviously everybody wants to be a morally better person. And the reason they have such visceral anti-conservative reactions is because programmed within them is that conservatives are like the antithesis of this morality of being kind and loving and so accepting of everyone, and like these opinions that they perceive as so much morally superior. And
you're right, but how does that, all right, how about this? This is part of my novel, and I wrote this when I was high in Ed's basement. Okay. So, and this is
good times.
Yeah.
Good times.
So how about this? Liberals have no respect for the human experience because they were taught to put the ideals of social justice above their own humanity. They willingly subordinate themselves to the authority of liberalism. So the police are not actually their police. They don't feel a part of the constitutional rule of law. So when they're images of people in the streets being confronted by the police, it's as if these rioters and looters are being yelled at by their father and standing behind their mother and saying, say what you want, but I'm getting away with this. The liberal argument is that moral success is an oxymoron. Moral success. Contemporary authority is identical with oppression. And I'll read about that, but I have very elaborate ideas about authority being identical to oppression. So I don't know what I wrote here. I haven't read this.
Wow, there are a couple things in there. I was like, damn,
right
on. I will say, helpful hint for writing, and this is only because I had the best English teacher ever. So your writing goes idea. What you should do is conceptual idea, then concrete, paint a picture, and then conceptual idea, concrete, paint a picture, tie them together.
Well, thank you. I'll do it next time.
I had that comment written on a lot of my essays. That's how I know.
Okay. So, idea, upcoming. And I haven't read this since I wrote it. I'll read it straight through, and then I'll go on because I have very interesting ideas about authority being identical to oppression. The liberal argument is that moral success is an oxymoron. Contemporary authority is identical with oppression. What needs to be done is not an intuition. It has to be run through a set of experts. Each point of view arguing, I can't even comprehend what I'm reading right now. So train wreck. But okay, so I'll paint a picture. That you can probably understand why people buy into this. So if you think that success in today's society is harder than it was in previous societies, you feel like you need a college degree to have a position of authority, and the college degree is astronomical, and then you get the college degree and you don't know shit about how to work in the real world. So now you want free college.
Yeah, because what you got was totally worthless.
Right. But okay, so then there's that. But then the fact that there are people in authority means that the only way to make things happen in society is to rustle the leaves and such. So you have Black Lives Matter protests in the streets. You have leaders saying death to America. And it's actually working. You're actually getting the CEOs of companies to say this. You're actually getting people fired. So the only way to make...
Do you know why it's working?
No, but it's a fact that they have empirical data. They have the data to show that their efforts are leading to change in a positive direction of social justice and equity. And never mind that they don't think about why equity is bad. All they have to do is have the idea of equity in their mind. And then they don't have to have a job. They don't have to work their way up to a leadership position in order to feel...
We got a special guest here.
We do have a special guest. They don't have to work their way up to a job in order to make change. They just have to be part of an amplifying voice to make that change, because they put the liberal idea of social justice ahead of their own humanity. And so it wipes away their own humanity, and then they don't feel like they're under the rule of law. They feel like they're in this parallel rule of law. That's why you have protesters in the streets, because they don't care if they're arrested. All they care about is what the liberal elite thinks of them.
Yeah, their idea of virtue has been totally replaced.
Yeah, but there's two parallel reputation ladders going on. They don't care what conservatives think of them, and by extension, they don't care what the rule of law thinks of them.
They're fighting a good fight, right? They are ideologically subverted, as this guy has said.
You can lean back and pull that mic close.
Oh man, this is such a comfortable couch. So yeah, I guess the whole thing is when you're ideologically subverted, right? You are essentially, your perception of the world, of the things as they are, is essentially given to you by a certain ideology. And, you are living your life according to the virtues of that ideology, and you will act in the way that you're programmed according to that. And so that's what I'm saying. When you're arguing with somebody that has a certain way of thinking, right, you have to understand the programming that goes in there, right? Basic explaining facts and the way things are isn't going to, I always thought the most convincing argument was show people the truth, right? I showed Ed the video of George Floyd fighting off the cops, and I sent him the video of whatever that James, what was that guy?
James O'Keefe?
No, something Taylor.
Breonna Taylor?
Or who's the guy who got shot in the back 7 times?
Jacob Blake. Just show him the video and show him his rap sheet, right? These are undeniable facts. I showed my friend Derek, who's he's a avowed communist at this point, right? Because that is that he's got a good head on his shoulders, and he's reached the ideological conclusion of all these leftist ideals, right? And that is communism. So he's there, and I showed him, here are the statistical empirical data of how many black people get shot in the United States unarmed from police. It was something like 12, right? It was a really low number. 15 over a whole year. Yep.
And consider how many murders black people commit. It's 52% of all murders in the United States, 13% of the population. I'm like, Derek, here are the empirical facts. what are you talking about? Like, Black Lives Matter is clearly a lie. And he's like, oh, well, you don't know, like, you don't even know if these are real or, like, they're, you know, this is, like, not true. And it's because black people are over policed that they get caught. I'm like, bro, like, you cannot show these people facts. Facts don't figure into the programming.
But you need to know why. You need to know why that is. You need to like get into the head and the heart of these people in order to understand what is the system that they're working in.
Well, the thing is, I will never be able to get in the system because I can't well, you can change, I guess. This is weird to talk about people like computers, but you can hypothetically
exactly. That's why I'm saying don't talk about people like fucking computers.
In the framework of their Weltanschauung, you cannot present an argument. The only way that you can get through to them is if you change their worldview. That's what I'm saying. So rather than argue with them these petty points of here's the facts, here's why this makes sense, you know, you just have to, I think being a bit trolly is just like putting chinks in the armor of the programming,
it's
right?
Not.
I really think the ultimate goal is to get this people to just get them to open their eyes and see things for what they are.
Has that happened to you? You're just like this hopeless romantic who thinks that like facts and logic are the way, and since you can't do it earnestly, that you have to do it trollingly and sarcastically and ironically and subversively. Like,
not subversively. I'm just saying. I'm trying to.
Isn't it interesting that only blah 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 blah? It's like
all I'm trying to do is make their brain short circuit. That's the whole point.
That's not how people work.
You're
the one who's talking about computers.
They can convince themselves.
Short circuit.
Yeah.
Program.
Yeah.
Reprogram.
Okay. They can convince themselves better than I can ever convince them. Right? So if I could just make them just have a little short circuit, it's like, well, you can't say that. Right? Then they'll, I think that'll be the most effective way.
I don't think that's true at all. And like, this is why I love having you on, because you shoot from the hip, and we have completely different strategies of talking to people on the other side. What I personally do is I say the argument that people believe from the other side, and I connect those people with the humanity of the conservative argument. Instead of having a disembodied, logical conservative argument, I talk about the people of the conservative movement and what their experience of belief is like. And so I don't even have to say what I believe. And this is what I did with Ed. This is what I do with my grandparents. I say certain people in my family, I feel comfortable enough saying what I believe. But for others, the sweeping the leg in the conversation is saying the reason why people don't subscribe to what you believe is because X, Y, Z. And saying because the lived experience argument is so powerful, these people, so that when you introduce an empathetic the start of an empathetic argument, they're already hooked. They're already hooked into like, okay, I can do that. I know how to tap into people's lived experiences. So when you're describing the lived experience of a conservative argument, then you don't even have to say what you believe. You just have to say the conservative argument. The reason these people don't actually believe what you believe is X, Y, Z.
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad way of doing it. Like, on my block, obviously, I'm very closeted. But, like, my girlfriend will probe me in front of her roommates, like, by accident. Like, they'll come downstairs while she's like, well, why can't you have an abortion, blah, blah, blah. And then is
like, your girlfriend liberal?
No, I've converted her.
What's her shtick right now?
Where she recently registered as a Democrat, and then after we started dating, I was just like, these people are so full of shit. Here's why. And then, you know what the most convincing thing was for her? Is watching Joe being a creepy ass motherfucker. I'm like, that's the guy you plan on voting for? She's like, I can't do it. And so in the end, I always scrolled the Donald/Win, and I always just show her funny memes and show her like facts that she would never have heard about. And she's like she switched into the frame of mind of being like, okay, yep, you're right. You're an asshole, but you're right.
Yeah.
So that's good enough for me. So if you were asking if there's anyone I converted, yes.
Fair enough.
So that was pretty fun, and now she totally loves all the trolly shit that I do. She won't say it, but
all I'm saying is
she'll laugh.
Yeah, that's Ed isn't sleeping with you.
It's so yeah, I don't
Ed
care.
isn't.
It's so fun though, like watching these people's brains short circuit. Where like I totally agree with Islam about women. Like, but like, what are you like anti-woman? I was like, is Islam anti-woman? It's like, no, but you can't say that. I'm like, why? Like, I totally agree with Islam about women. It's like, and
yeah, they agree with the narrative more than they agree with the facts. But part of them also has to be like logically consistent. But
they're not. It's not a logical.
But they're willing to sacrifice their logical consistency to stay true to the narrative and being a good person.
Which narrative?
The narrative. The leftist narrative, the BLM Antifa Democratic Party narrative.
Exactly. Well, it's all just like, the whole.
But they don't see it as a narrative. They see it as the truth.
Standing up for the little guy, and the little guy's always right. And like, there's a mean big guy, whoever's got the power, and he always hurts the little guy. Except when it's Democrats. When it's Democrats, they're all nice and good to the little guy, and they help the little guy.
Yeah, but yeah, and then the half-baked idea I have is that they see authority as identical to oppression. And so like you have like a teacher that gives you a bad grade and you don't know why they give you a bad grade. It's like, oh, because it's a bad teacher. They see that in every single realm of society. If they don't get a job,
yeah,
it's
because I'm black.
Yeah.
I just love trolling. If someone's like, yo, did you, like, why don't you like that guy? Is because he's black? And I was like, yeah, because he's black. Like, obviously that's not it. But you just got to troll it. It's like, yo, man, why are you mad at it? It's because you're black. And, like, obviously that's not the case. But this is, like, the argument they're presenting. And, like, when you just show it to them like that, like, it looks so ridiculous. And I think that through parody, like, through just mocking these people relentlessly and just showing them how ridiculous their ideological framework is, like, that's how I operate. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I just think that's wrong because we both agree that the truth isn't going to get out there unless, like, the time is now for us to speak out. Like, the time is gone for us to keep our heads down. Like, you know, we are the locuses of the truth nowadays, and so
yeah,
like,
the power of silence is the power of lies.
So that I'm ardently disagreeing with you because I think that there's a vein that we can tap into that is like the direct, like we can tap into the liberal heart in order to show them truth rather than cynically and ironically giving parody, because there's a difference between not believing something and believing. So like all the other Daily Wires, so I'll tie it back in. Ben Shapiro and stuff, Ben Shapiro, Knowles, and Matt Walsh, they trash the left. But Klavan is different because he tries to create the conservative narrative. Those are two very, very, very different jobs. And so I
listen to both.
Yeah, sure. But I think that your tactics are more on the line of trashing the left rather than creating the right.
I totally agree with that, right?
And nature abhors a vacuum. So if people if people think that their leftist argument is wrong and stuff, but they don't have anything else to like latch onto, then they're just going to go right back to their leftist argument.
Yeah. And that's actually kind of how I got converted, right? I was exposed to the backbone of, you know, conservative thinking, right? The you know, from Greek philosophy on through, you know, classical literature and yada, 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 like the basic underlying premises of why our culture is constructed the way it is and, you know, why everything is the way it is. And I'm like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. And I was like, I could go with this framework, which seems to make total sense, or I could stick with this one, which seems shallow and ridiculous in comparison. That's when I switched.
Yeah. There's a psychological term for it, but then there's also a game theory term for it. That's called game B, where you're on one railroad track and there's another railroad track and there's the adaptive valley, where you go from one stable state into an adaptive valley where things get worse, but they go to another stable state that may be in a more advantageous position, but you have to go through the adaptive valley in order to get there. So in order to start a new job, you have to go through a training process. Things are difficult when you're training, but the idea is to adapt, go through the adaptive valley into a stable state on the other end of that valley. And people aren't willing to cross that adaptive valley if they don't feel like there's a stable state on the other end of it. So you have to make a credible conservative argument that taps into what people already believe about themselves and their own humanity in order to allow them to cross that adaptive valley. Otherwise, they'll say, oh, that's just a fringe thing about the leftist thing. Like, it's just a glitch. Like, I'm still on the right side of history, but, like, this is just, you have to crack a couple eggs to make an omelet. Like, people actually believe that if they don't have anything better to believe in on the other side of the adaptive valley.
Yeah, I actually never thought about it that way. Yeah, I definitely think here's the thing. I can't explain to them, like, what is the purpose of life? Like, that's such a deep and fundamental thing to explain to somebody. I guess I could argue it, but then you have to, like, start from zero and build up. Luckily, this was a school assignment, so we had to read, like, pages and pages and pages of philosophy to actually get to understanding something. And so in the end, that's how I came to it. But it's kind of a shame that if I had more time, if in a discussion, a political discussion, I could start from zilch and explain conservatism to somebody, I would totally do it. But I just, in the interest,
I think it's actually possible, though.
I'm
not saying that's possible. I don't think that's possible, but I think there's scaffolding along the way. So for each issue, there's something that you can explain about humanity that allows liberals to understand why someone might think that why someone might understand the liberal argument and yet identify with the conservative argument. Because that's the thing. They think that conservatives are in their own bubble too, because they're projecting their bubble onto them. So if you craft a narrative of understanding the liberal argument and yet identifying with the conservative argument in a wholehearted, undoubtful way, that's the thing to do. And that's what I'd like to do over the next year. 1 year from now, I'd like to understand issues linguistically on a level where I know where I stand and I can describe it in a way that's understandable, that comes across as if I know the liberal argument and identify with the conservative one. And obviously, times change and whatever, and maybe the liberal argument in some cases is more
packaged.
Applicable for the time period, because the time period shifts. There's liberal arguments for opening things up, perhaps immigration and stuff like legal immigration, yada yada yada. But sometimes maybe we don't want to have as much restrictions and this and that. Maybe like gay marriage is an interesting one.
Well, hold on. So with immigration, you gotta explain that there's a few very basic principles. We have to have control. We have to be able to choose who comes to this country or not. So what I usually will ask somebody, do you think that anybody, no matter what, should be allowed to come in the United States? Obvious answer, no. I'm like, okay, how do you control that? It's like, oh, well, you have border checkpoints. I'm like, okay, I just walked through the desert. Now what? Like, that's my approach to arguing, right? Just argue at the fundamental underlying principles that they hold and just attack there and try to explain the very solid principles upon which it's built. But I can't, go too in detail, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And I think the roadblock that I'm seeing in my line of thinking of like, here you can describe blah, 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 is the principle of freedom, because describing how freedom is a good in and of itself is so impossibly hard.
I think it is super applicable to almost anything, right? I guess what I embraced as a conservative is that I could actually do a lot more than I thought, right? You go from the way of thinking where it's like, am I allowed to do these things? It's like, oh, wow, I didn't know that was allowed, to what the hell? I thought I could do anything. Like, I'm not allowed to do that. It's like, why are they getting in my way? You don't realize, a lot of liberals don't realize that they could do whatever they want, right? Their whole idea is kind of like, oh, go to school, get good grades, go to college, get good grades, get a good job, They think this is the only path forward, right, in life. Or kind of, I guess. Not the only, but one of the few. It's like, no, you could just start a business, quit college, like, do whatever. You could just do whatever you want. You could leave the country. You could go do literally anything. You have the freedom to almost do anything.
Yeah,
And
I think people need to experience that in order to feel like freedom is a good, because like in the last podcast I rapped, and I got a copyright claim on the instrumental that I use. I'm like, what the fuck? And like, I can imagine
non-copyrighted instrumental, or
I don't know. The video got banned in Denmark.
For what?
Weirdly enough, because of the song or whatever. So I had to look up. It wasn't
our video got banned in Denmark.
Cultural Procreation episode 1 got banned in Denmark.
Wow, dude, I'm coming after those people.
Yeah.
I have a bone to pick with the Danish. I have a big bone to pick with them, and one of that, there's this one weird ass troll girl at this one party we went to recently, and she was like so unattractive, and she would not leave me alone. Turns out though, she's Danish. I love Scandinavian people, and I was like, how can you be Danish? Killing me here. So I'm pissed at the Danish for that troll girl. She was so annoying.
They're not sending their best.
They're not sending their best. That's one thing I can tell you for sure.
Yeah. But
Sweden, though, my heart goes out to Sweden.
Point is,
Sweden.
Look at where we are. There's like, this is like my parents' house. There's a pink jacket over there. There's an alarm system. There's a gallon of water. There's my computer that I use to work an insurance job. There's a glass with ice in it and melted ice. There's a Kindle over there. And yet, if we try to upload this on YouTube and we say certain things, it can be taken down. It's like, what the fuck? We're just having a conversation. We're having a human conversation. Why is that stifled online? Why is that speech stifled online? And so that makes it crazy when like your direct, just living your daily life gets impeded, and you're like, what the fuck? Why is there a roadblock there? I need some freedom. And you see the like detriment of regulation. But yeah, I don't think people understand freedom until they run up against not freedom.
Oh yeah, I love people who argue for hate speech codes, right? And it's like, yeah, we should totally have hate speech codes. I'm like, okay, what is hate speech? It's like when you hate someone or a group of people. And it's like, okay, how do you feel about President Trump? And they're like, fuck Donald Trump. Like, It's like, okay, do you talk hatefully about it? And it's like, yeah, well, that's not hate speech. It's like, okay, well, he's the government. He's the one who decides what hate speech is.
And then the logical conclusion is hate speech is good for some people and bad for other people. Why?
Okay.
The logical conclusion is Marxism because of oppressed groups, and that's the Marxism isn't the premise.
Are you allowed to
it's
criticize
the conclusion.
Republicans? Come on.
Yeah, I know, but the Marxism isn't the premise; it's the conclusion, and that's what these are the kinds of like conversations of like, where do the ideas start and where do they end that I'm really interested in. The Marxism is the conclusion of saying yeah, it should be okay to trash some people, but not others because other people are sensitive. Why are other people sensitive? Because they're oppressed and it holds them back. And like, okay, so which people are oppressed? And okay, this. And then, oh, wait, they're oppressed in different ways. Oh, intersectionality. And like, oh, maybe, well, what is the consequence of that? Oh, maybe we intersect, like, we should have equity. We should have equity. We should have equal representation and all of this because if they're equally represented, then they can stand up for themselves and stuff. And it's like, that's the A, B, C, D, and E. And that's important to know as a conservative, to know what link in the chain is being triggered when you say what you say and where the ideas come from and where they go.
Wow. Yeah. I never thought about it like that, but I just go for the base premise. First thing. I'm like, you have a false notion of the way the world really is. It's like Black Lives Matter. It's like, okay.
That probably goes well.
Yeah, I'm like, by the way, there's no police problem against black people. Black people do not get killed by police at a disproportionate rate. Facts. Actually, the problem is black people commit way more crimes than they're supposed to. And it's like audible gasp. And it's like, what do you mean? Like, it's like, that's just what it is. You're being fed lies. It's like, no, Stephen Colbert never lies.
Yeah.
Come
That's a
on.
tough one. The criminals
But
are
the thing is,
victims of oppression.
Who is Goebbels, who's like, you repeat a lie enough, it becomes the truth. And it's just like this echo chamber where it's like the late night comedians, then news hosts, then like Grammy Award recipients, and then, like political leaders all kind of echo the same idea, and they just bounce it around. It's like, okay, Black Lives Matter, police killed black people. And doesn't even matter if it actually is true, but so many people are talking about it. So many people are like, just throwing it out there, and the people who do not have any countervailing information will never hear actual facts around that. They'll just believe it.
It's crazy. And then I was in a political group chat with my fraternity, and I booted myself out because it was too many Marxists, and I was like, eventually, like,
you should never boot yourself out. You should just troll them. If you're getting nowhere, you just troll them.
Yeah. So I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be like Christ-like and say like there's love in my heart, blah blah blah, like everything I believe, like point out anything that's bad that I believe, and I'll denounce it, yada yada yada.
Hate the sin, words. Not the sinner.
Yeah. And one of them, who wasn't really a Marxist, he's more of a liberal, but he worked for a lot of political campaigns, so he's more of like a strategic liberal and stuff. And he was saying the old conservatives are a lost cause. What we need to do now is get to their children. And that's like,
what?
Yeah, get to their children. And like, it's the logical conclusion of, if you can't, like, these children are infinite potential. And then on Ben Shapiro today, he was talking about what the fuck do you got?
I'm just readjusting. I just wanted to show you like what kind of memes are so funny and so effective, and why they banned the Donald on Reddit.
I don't use Reddit anymore.
Yeah, me neither. Just the Donald.win. Highly recommend. Great memes.
The Donald.win?
Yep, and it's just such good memes. Trump like tweeted out, it's like anarchists captured, like crying and kneeling on the ground, and it's like begging for their mommy, and then Trump comments, "Gotta catch 'em all." And so there's just this whole meme storm of like Trump is the Pokemon guy. They're so funny. So there's just a lot of good memes out there. A lot of good things to send to people who will just get shocked and like offended. And it's like, why are you mad, bro? Why are you mad? And it's not for a logical reason. It's because they're programmed. I'm telling you, this is what the KGB defector said. this is a programming. They're programming them ideologically, right? There doesn't have to be any logic in it for it to make sense to them, right? This is just the way that the Soviet Union does it.
Well, one thing that he said was there has to be a lack of moral standard already there.
And that's one thing that we have in the United States.
And another interesting question is why that
moral
is.
Objectivism is literally the reason we're having the problems we are.
As you know, armchair philosopher, armchair psychologist kind of thing, the interesting question lies in why is there no moral standard anymore? And it's like, because we were a Christian nation and blah, 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 but like, and now we're not. And it's like, well, why is that?
Well, so the whole thing in the 60s, right, is the leftists used our strengths as our weaknesses. So free speech, right? They said, we need free speech. And we were trying to ban like certain communist ideology because, you know, in the Cold War, that made sense. And they're like, they had the whole free speech movement. We need free speech. And obviously it's consistent with American ideals to have free speech. So we went gung-ho on free speech. And then they, you know, use our American ideals as weaknesses to ideologically subvert. So when they have free speech, it's like, oh, you can't have, you know, you can't have any sort of restrictions on any communism or anything like that. That goes against free speech. And obviously, which makes sense. But they'll keep using that, and then they said they'll use the church and state argument to weaken church. And they're like, you can't have prayers in school.
What do you think about that? As
I don't care.
A non-Christian.
I don't care. Like, I don't have any issue with people praying in schools. Like, I could pray in school as well. Who cares? Like, what's the deal? Why are you mad? Why you have to be mad? It's only a game.
Yeah. All right.
Gotta tell me.
So one of the things I said in my group chat was, gentlemen, I am no longer a pillar of ideas, but a man of words. I open my soul to you, and at times you handle it as an ideology to justify some hatred in my heart. Name every hatred you see in me, and I will be grateful to face it in truth and release it. I want nothing more than to love my fellow man. By supposing something other than what I mean to say, what I mean by words to express, you misconstrue my soul, and it pains me. I shoulder that burden and take maximal responsibility for clear communication, but for the sake of my own well-being, I'm apprehensive of sharing the words closest to my heart in this venue. Going forward, I'll engage on the surface with the thrill of the election season, but know that I'm not frivolous, but guarded. This is a week before I left the chat, and I just said, peace out. But the chief Marxist said, Aaron, you have always struck me as someone searching for the universal love. I do not say this frivolously, and I believe you when you say this. One of the main premises of where I'm coming from ideologically is that hatred in your heart is not required for contributing to world suck. There's an idea out there that if every individual is nice enough, it will solve all the problems of social relations. I see this idea in your words, both here and earlier when you asked about what harm...
This guy's literally a utopian.
Yeah, what harm you, the individual, would cause by making your way in the world this way. And I know this idea is harmful because I know that just by being a nice person is not enough to make social changes we need. What the fuck?
This guy is ideologically subverted 100%.
So the touchdown, he's in the red zone right now. The touchdown is, I don't see the hatred in your heart, but when you deny the existence of oppressive structures, even if you do so nicely and sincerely, you still contribute to their harm.
Literally, just ask him, is it possible for you to be statistically wrong about this?
Yeah, but what they're saying is there is an ideal higher than everyone being their ideal selves. There has to be some collective shouldering of a burden in order to enact change that will suck for everyone individually, but will be better for the people.
Okay, Kami. Come on, bro. Give me a break. This
I know.
Guy.
But that's what people actually believe.
Yeah. So, like I said, a lot of the leftists are getting to the end, the end goal of their ideas, the logical conclusion of what their thinking leads to on which premises there's. And it's obviously communism. And they're getting there sooner or later. Some of them have openly said that they're Marxists. Others don't admit it, but that's where they're at.
And what's crazy is this dude's not white. And so he's saying, I'm one of the smart people of color. And I'm taking I'm like, I called him elitist. He's like, what do you mean by elitist? I'm like, it's like you're, it's the soft bigotry of low expectations.
Yeah, I hate to say it, bro, but the big thing that bothers me the most is collectivist thinking. And rather than thinking of yourself as an individual, you got to put yourself in a group. Why are you putting yourself in these boxes, right? Why do you got to see yourself as, a member of Black America, who's doing all these things as a member of Black America rather than as an individual? Why social justice rather than individual justice? And I think these people, it's like whoever.
See, this is the end. This is where I come in.
Collectivism versus individualism, the internal struggle, and this is the conflict that's coming to bear.
I like to think about these questions of if you twist on the left side of the microphone, yes, twist that down. Yeah, you can
yeah.
So these are the questions: why collectivism over individualism?
Oh well. Hold on. Yeah.
You did it's the exact same as it was.
No, I tilted it this way.
There you go.
And I tilted it up, so.
Yeah. Just make sure you're speaking into the top.
I am, motherfucker.
It's time for this joint.
What?
The question of why people succumb to collectivism over individualism. Why do you think? If you were to steel manning?
No.
You know the straw man fallacy?
Yeah.
Where you make a joke of the opponent's argument and take on that and say you've beaten your opponent, and the opponent's like, that's not my argument.
That's not my argument. Yeah.
So steel manning is when you make the opponent's argument as strong as possible. This is what Dostoevsky does. He makes the atheist argument as strong as possible, stronger than any atheist in Russia in the entire world, and then takes that on and sees if he can triumph over the strongest form of the opposition.
Okay.
So can you steelman the collectivist argument? Can you understand why people choose collectivism over individualism and say, but individualism is still the way to go?
Okay. When we work together, we're stronger than any one person. And when we, as a collective, want to do something, we could do anything we want. And if we just work together as one and one big collective, everybody helps each other. If you don't think about yourselves and always think about the interests of the collective will be stronger. And when the collective is stronger, then we will succeed above anyone's imagination.
And let's get some experts at the top there to tell us exactly where to do. We'll all put our resources together. We'll all take a small hit so we can make a big change.
Yeah. It's fucking garbage.
Yeah. That's what taxes are.
Retarded garbage.
Yeah.
Take it from me. But, if there's one...
Well, why is individualism better than that?
Because it's consistent with human nature.
But that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't get to the bottom of it.
Why do you think? Because let's just, not even incentive structure, but let's just think about it. Have you lived for your whole life for America?
You can't make
how strong, how many things would you do for the collective? How hard would you work at a factory if you breaking your back and sweating is all just so America could do better?
You can't make an argument out of a rhetorical question. And this is probably the hardest question at the bottom of A, this podcast, and B, like the political spectrum right now is what is the argument for individualism against everybody working together? Everybody takes a little hit in order to make a big social change. We'll put the experts, the people that study, the people that devoted their whole lives to figuring out the solutions to problems, we'll put them at the top and we'll have them tell us what to do. We'll all take a little bit of a hit. And even if it's, a bit of a wrong answer, we only took a little bit of a hit individually, but eventually we'll have that collective change that we need, built by the experts who've devoted their whole lives to studying the proper solutions to these grand problems. Nobody's going to figure out these problems except the experts.
This is utopia, right? This is leftist.
It's not utopia. It's not utopia. It's so logical. It's so logical.
Okay.
And so if you buy into this, if you steel man collectivism, if you grant as much charity to the collectivist argument as you can, why is individualism better? No rhetorical questions.
I told you why. It's
human
inconsistent
nature
with human nature.
But why? Why? I'm the child. Why? I understand collectivism.
Humans are selfish.
Humans are selfish. So what?
The self is a much bigger motivator than the collective. Second of all, you
have to make that
a person always thinks they're right, but a person rarely thinks that a whole collective is always right.
But if
a person believes
is
in themselves, a person believes in himself much more than he'll ever believe in a collective.
I disagree. I think that's exactly false. I think people believe in collective way more than they believe in themselves because of the inherent shame in human nature and stuff. And
I disagree.
If you have a pundit on whatever who is using fancy words and it's like, that's easy to agree with. And if they're wrong, then it wasn't me that said it. There's so much when you have an idea and you're willing to speak it. How are we getting? 10 p.m.?
We're way over time.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's all right. No problem.
We'll start wrapping this up because there's a huge question mark.
We got to finish this.
Huge question mark at the end of this. So when you commit to saying what you believe, first you have to have the language, and you have to describe your experience of everything. You have to describe your take on a complex idea. And there's a lot of risk in doing that because if you're wrong, then it was you who is wrong. But if you're a collectivist, then you leech off of a collectivist point of view. If you're wrong, you don't bear any of that risk.
No personal responsibility.
You don't bear any of that risk. You don't have the responsibility, but you also don't have the risk.
That's why people who grew up in communist societies to us seem like sociopaths.
Yeah. Oh my God.
They don't have any sense of personal responsibility.
Dude, like when you look at the leadership in like China and stuff, they obviously don't believe what they say, and you can see interviews and
they're so good at lying too, because lying, at least I'll tell you about Russia, people lie about everything because they are born liars, right? So when we hear lie to each other, there's a sense of shame involved, but they lie so much because pretty much in the Soviet Union you had to always tell a lie, like, yeah, Lenin's the best, Stalin's the best, Stalin's the man, Stalin is a superhuman, right? You always had to say a lie. If you didn't say the lie, you're dead. So you had to, life trained Russian people to be expert liars. And that's definitely stuck around since the days of socialism.
I want to read something. So it was a psychological analysis of the conditions that made the camps possible and probable. Solzhenitsyn, Gulag Archipelago stuff. He identified the fundamental problem in the Soviet Union, the fundamental problem, as the willingness of the Soviet citizens to lie to themselves and each other on a constant and ongoing basis. So to some degree, it's a reflection of the idea I told you about before of the instrumental use of language. Language was something to hide your true self behind, not something to communicate with. And people were very unwilling to discuss anything that might be considered a shortcoming of the system in any way possible, no matter how bad the system got, no matter how bad they were suffering. Because by definition, the system was always already perfect. Right, utopia had already come. And what that meant was that if you were suffering and it was utopia, there was obviously something seriously wrong with you. The best thing to do with a creature that was seriously gone astray as you was to get rid of them, and often in the most brutal way could possibly be imagined. So that happened to lots of people. In East Germany, they estimated 1 out of every 3 people was a government informer. And so,
Yep.
The next bit of that
Have you watched the movie The Lives of Others?
No, but I watched The Death of Stalin.
Not nearly as good. Watch The Lives of Others. That might be one of the best movies ever made.
What is it?
It's
Lies or Lives?
The Lives of Others. It's about how this guy in Stasi Germany is surveilled and like the things that people go to. It's honestly the best character arc of any character ever.
Okay,
it's
that's
the
a bold
Stasi
claim.
officer.
So the last bit is, so the lie, and this is Solzhenitsyn's analysis. Solzhenitsyn's analysis of what happened in the Soviet Union. He didn't believe any of that could happen unless the entire citizenry had made an unspoken pact that they were never ever going to say anything that was true to each other or to themselves under any circumstance whatsoever. And he believed that was the precondition, blah, blah, blah. You know, I've already mentioned the sorts of phenomenon are very complicated, but he believed that was the precondition for the absolute corruption of the state. The willingness of the Soviet citizens to lie to themselves and each other. But there's an obvious reason why people do that is because it's dangerous to tell the truth, because you might be wrong. And if you're wrong about your idea, then you're fucked because you're the only one behind it.
So what? Most people are wrong about a lot of things. Like I don't even see that as a huge deal. Nobody's right about everything. You have the right in the U.S. the reason with free speech and all that. You have the constitutional right to be wrong, and that's super important because when you have the right to be wrong, right, someone else is able to make a better argument than you, and both people have the freedom to do that, and usually the truth has a good way of shining through, and in an honest discussion, you can sort through who's right and who's wrong. But
the reason it's in
and
the
you could reach a better conclusion that way.
The reason it's in the Constitution is because it's unnatural. It's not human behavior to want freedom of speech for an entire society. It's not human behavior to want right to bear arms for everyone in society. And so, like,
yes, humanity or society has a tendency for tyranny.
So you're
right?
saying it's not susceptible with human nature, blah, blah, blah. But like freedom of speech is not susceptible with human nature. That's why we have it protected.
Yeah. I guess from a pragmatic point of view, yes. But let me make a rights argument against collectivism, right? You should have the right.
Hold that mic down again.
You as an individual have certain rights that are endowed to you by your creator, right? That nobody could take away, you know, and not even the collective can take those rights away. I think that's an argument that wouldn't even work on leftists.
Probably. And it's an open question whether you can make a freedom argument to an atheist.
Yeah, guess what? Like it or not, you have these rights that nobody could take away. That is your human dignity, if you will. Right? You can't take them away from someone else, and no one can take them away from you. They're your birthright. Whether you want to think they're from God or not, that's on you. But that's how it is.
And I'll tell you, I'm in tap with the leftists, the Marxists, and the group chat. They say that those rights were cemented and protected in order to protect the structure of oppression and the structure of society.
Yeah, ask them to prove it.
They
Good
don't
luck
need
with
to.
that.
They'll believe without proof.
No. Literally, if they're ever arguing.
I mean, the proof is the evidence. The proof is in the pudding that yada yada, slave, 3/5, and women can't vote, and all this stuff. It's like, and then it's all wrapped up. But it's like every belief is wrapped up in every other belief. You can't talk about guns without talking about fucking like birth
mumbo
control.
jumbo. Yeah, one actually super effective argument that I found on leftists is the power to the people argument, right? If you're in a confrontation, you, another person, and one of them has the gun, who is the power? obviously it's going to be the ultimate power. If you get in a dispute, you get in a tussle about it, the guy with the gun has the power.
Yeah.
Right? If both people have a gun, it's equal, right? Both people are in a way protected. Both people's rights are protected.
Yeah, you could make a women argument against that for guns. And what I say is, let's say you're a single mother with 3 children and a man breaks into your house. You're going to tell that woman that she can't have a gun on her when she can't call the police because they're not going to get to there in time. She heard the door open. She knows who's in there. She knows who's in the house. She knows what they're there for. You're going to tell that single mother of 3 children that she can't have a gun? That's my...
I would never. All right.
Yeah.
Yo, I'm thinking it's like 22-12. I got to roll out.
Let's
Got
go.
a big contract coming up tomorrow. I don't want to take too long, but it's been a pleasure being with y'all again. Hopefully, Denmark, you figure it out this time. You don't mess with me because I'll be really unhappy. But yeah. Peace.
Good
cool.
day.
Good day. Oh, Aaron, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. What kind of whiskey was it? That's kind of what I was getting at.
I don't know. We'll go upstairs and see.
The good shit. Ooh, I'm so winded.